Today, I brought some items here that will definitely make us travel back in time to a noble era in human history, when the main weapon for close combat was the sword. As you will notice in this video, each region, each part of the world developed its own sword following the same principles, but each one created its own model. And today I put together an arsenal with some of the most famous and coolest swords and brought them here to show you. The first sword we have here is this magnificent ceremonial saber. Take a look at how wonderful it is. It starts off with this detail. These little cords here are just for decoration. It has a closed metal guard, right? The handle is for one hand only. It also has a very interesting pommel. Its scabbard is all leather with some metal details. Look at how wonderful it is. It's a very beautiful sword, but it's a bit awkward because since its blade is very long and we only have space on the handle for one hand, I don't know if it's really that agile or easy to maneuver. And this one here is an identical replica based on the sabers used by the United States Marine Corps. On its blade, we can see some artwork engraved here. In fact, there's even a mention here, United States Marines. The United States Marine Corps is a separate branch, different from the Navy. The Navy is one and the Marine Corps is another, but they usually work together. In fact, it was created even before the founding of the United States, and at that time it was called the Continental Marines. The soldiers used this sword, but as weapons evolved, swords were gradually set aside. And this masterpiece here became just a ceremonial artifact. And a cool detail about this sword is that it's kind of curved, right? And it has only one edge, meaning only the bottom part here is sharp, and it's not even along the whole blade. There's a really sharp tip that was often used to stab enemies. You have 10 throughout the whole site later. You can take a look there. Now we have here a sword that was remarkable in the history of Rome. A sword used both by gladiators and by soldiers of the empire. I'm talking about this Gladius here. This was already a handmade sword. And it's a short sword made to be very agile with a very thick and wide blade. It's sharp on both sides and the tip is very sharp. And just like the other one, it's also a one-handed sword. The Gladius is a sword that was used by the Romans, but it was also used by the Vikings. The swords are very similar. They follow very similar principles, only a few small things are different, and the main characteristic of this sword was that it could both thrust and cut, but mainly the thrust. And at the same time that the tip is sharp, the edge of the blade also starts right here. When the sword penetrated the opponent's armor, it could already pierce and at the same time cut through everything in its path. And this is a handcrafted sword made by my friend Professor Carlos Diniz. And this sword here is worth approximately 500 Rs. Attention passengers, we are now going to head east. More precisely towards Japan. We have these two swords here now. This one here is a katana and this one here is a wakizashi. The wakizashi has a slightly shorter blade than the katana itself. Katanas were used for battles in open fields, and that's why the main warriors who used this sword were the samurai, Japanese warriors in the feudal period. They were like the Japanese army, and their counterparts were the ninjas who were hired to do the dirty work. And the ninjas' fights usually took place inside buildings. They were stealthier, which required more effective, shorter weapons. That's when the wakizashi, a katana with a shorter blade, appeared. There's another interesting point. To handle a katana, a sword like this, Japanese warriors needed a lot of concentration, precision, and strength. So they had some training. One of them was tatami cutting. It seems easy, but any movement in the wrist and the blade already changes direction, causing the strike to go wrong. So you need concentration, precision, and the strength has to be very well aligned to be able to deliver a high quality strike. And this technique of cutting tatami mats was called tamshi shijiri. Now let's talk about the prices. This wakizashi cost 1,500 now. This Akito katana, it cost 1,950. I also bought both of them at Crosster. By the way, this little video here was pretty expensive, so go ahead and leave your like, because we actually have more swords, really cool ones, from the Middle Ages. The main weapons used were the sword, the spear, and the bow and arrow. By the way, I think I've never brought a spear here on the channel, right? It would be something interesting. If you like the idea, leave it in the comments and we'll bring several spears in the next videos. And back then, the sword was a short-range weapon used to destroy enemies and pierce their armor. So the sword had to be a little heavier, and with a much larger blade and handle. The handle was for holding with both hands. There was also a guard here to protect your own hands. And the blade was very long and pointed with two edges, and that way the sword could be used both by infantry and cavalry, because it was long even while on horseback. The soldier could reach the enemy. This sword originated in Europe, and this style of sword here, it became widespread precisely because of its efficiency. And nowadays, it is recognized both for that and for its beauty, which honestly, there's nothing more to say about it, right? This sword in my hands is a Honshu broadsword. It has some very interesting details. This metallic pommel here, made of steel, it has this rubberized handle which feels really nice to hold. And it also has a partial fuller, going up to about half of the sword. In fact, what's really interesting is what this feature is actually for. Since these swords were long and heavy, they made this central fuller to remove a bit of material from the blade and make it a little lighter so you could handle it and have a bit more agility. Because it's no joke, this thing is heavy to strike with. If you couldn't hold it with both hands, with just one hand, you wouldn't have any mobility at all to strike with this. As for the value of this work of art, it was nothing more, nothing less. Oh, my wallet even hurts. 3,000 to 3,200 Ries. The last sword on my list for sure is the most unique and eye-catching sword we have in today's video, which is this one. Combat Commander Titanage. Let's open it. It has this really beautiful sheath, and take a look at it. It's even more beautiful. It's a sword that looks like a machete. It's really unique. It has a gigantic handle, almost the same size as the blade itself. It's only sharp on this lower part. It has a nice little tip. Because it's curved like this, its main function is for cutting and so on. And this one here, it follows the style of Krabi swords. But in this case, the shape of this one is much more exaggerated. And the Krabi is the main type of Thai sword, used in Krabi Krabong, which is the martial art. Thai armed martial art. Krabi is the sword, in this case, this sword here. And Krabong was the staff, which was also widely used. So since the staff and the sword were the two most used weapons, this armed martial art was named Krabi Krabong. And what I found coolest about this sword here is that its handle is entirely made of nylon fiber, which makes it really interesting. Extremely resistant, and also its blade, unlike the others, has a coating that's all matte black, which made it look really nice and totally different from anything we've ever brought here on the channel. I bought this sword here also at Kroster, and it cost me a certain amount, for 800 Ries. Well, these then were the swords from our arsenal. If you want us to make a video just testing all these swords, just leave a lot of likes and also comment a lot down below, and in the next videos we can test all of them. I hope you really enjoyed this tour we did around the world and through the history of humanity. It's really crazy to imagine how these swords were developed over the years, what needs they were designed to meet, and everything else. I really enjoyed it. Recording this video, I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you very much. By the way, we'll see each other in the next video. We're in this together. See you next time. That's it. Thanks. See you and goodbye.